Hi everyone, we're going to let f of x equals 6 plus 6 sine of x, and part of the graph is shown below, or to the side here. The shaded region is enclosed by the curve of f, the x-axis, and the y-axis. We're going to solve for x in between 0 and 2 pi, and we want to solve both of these right here. So let's start with that. So for the first part, we're going to we have 6 plus 6 sine of x equals 6. Subtract 6, you get 6 sine of x equals 0. Divide both sides by 6, you get sine of x equals 0. And that's going to be at 0, that's x equals pi. All right. Then we're going to do the second one. So we get 6 sine of x equals negative 6, or sine of x equals negative 1. So x equals 3 pi divided by 2. Now, 7b says, write down the exact value of the x-intercept of f. So that's right here. And that's going to be 3 pi over 2. Because that's when, this is the second one here. When sine of x equals negative 1, that would be 3 pi over 2. So this is, or you can say this, when y is 0, what is x? That's how you do your y-intercept, or your x-intercept. So that's 3 pi divided by 2. So, and that's what we did when we did this equation here, number 2. So when our equation was 0, that's your y part, our x value was 3 pi over 2. Now, it says, let's move on. Let g of x, okay, write down the exact value. Okay, the area of the shaded region is k. So this all is k. Find the value of k, giving your answers in terms of pi. So for that, we're going to have to use anti-differentiation. So basically, we're going from the area, the interval from 0, and we already know that this is 3 pi divided by 2. So we're doing from 0 to 3 pi divided by 2 of 6 plus 6 sine of x dx. All right. So now let's do the correct integral, and that's going to be 6x minus 6 cosine of x. And we want to evaluate that from 0 to 3 pi divided by 2. So let's substitute that in. You start with this one. You get 6 times 3 pi divided by 2 minus 6 cosine of 3 pi divided by 2. Okay, and then minus, you put in 0. So this will be 0 minus 6 times cosine of 0. Let's put cosine of 0. So when you work all this out, you're going to get, this is going to be 18 pi over 2 and plus 6, because, no, this is 0. So this is really, cosine of 3 pi over 2 is just 0. So that zeroes out. So this equals 9 pi over 2, or that's just 9 pi, minus 0 for this part. And then cosine of 0 is 1. So you get minus a negative 1 is plus 6. because 1 times 6 is 6. So your final answer is K is going to equal 9 pi plus 6. All right. In terms of pi. So now, D, it says, let g of x equal 6 plus 6 sine of x minus pi divided by 2, and the graph is transformed to the graph of g. So only difference between this one and our original is we have this horizontal shift. So we write this as the translation we're shifting to the right to pi over 2, and we're not shifting up or down. So that's just going to be 0. So that's a horizontal shift or a phase shift to the right by pi divided by 2, and a vertical shift, there is none. All right. Now for the final part, it said let g of x equal this new transform equation. The graph of f is transformed to the graph of g, given that, let's write it on here, given that we're going from p to p plus 3 pi divided by 2 of gx dx equals k. So for that one, we need to recognize that all we're doing is shifting our g of x by pi over 2. So that's going to give you p equals pi divided by 2, and p equals 0. So basically, if you're shifting this whole graph over to pi over 2, then basically you have the integral pi divided by 2, and you add pi over 2 here, and that gives you 2 pi, so everything's getting shifted over. And your other integral, your two values of p would be 0, and then if p is 0, this would be 3 pi divided by 2, which is our original here. And that's it. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.